Have you ever wondered why some festivals feel magical while others just don't land? It's not just the lineup or the lighting. It often comes down to one thing: the site. The location you choose can make or break your entire event. And in this video, I'm going to walk you through the 5 most important things to consider when choosing your festival site, and why your audience experience starts long before the gates even open. Stick around for the last point. I think it's the one that organisers overlook the most, and it sets apart unforgettable festivals. Let's start with the most obvious, but the most ignored factor: how people actually get to your site. For urban festivals, you'll usually have access to public transport, taxis, infrastructure. But in rural or greenfield sites, it's a totally different ballgame. You need to think about how people are going to get to the site. Start to think about things like public transport, road networks, on-site and overflow parking for cars, shuttle buses, or transport partnerships. All of these feed directly into the design of your site. Remember, if you don't solve the transport problem, you've already created friction before anyone even arrives. You can use OnePlan to map the outline of your site with key entrances and exits. Think public and staff. Check which access routes and transport hubs you have available close by. And if you're missing these, you might need to plan for additional parking or space to set up a pickup or drop-off zone. A great example of this is Coachella, just outside of Los Angeles. It feels remote enough to feel special, but close enough to be drivable, and that balance is key. The second thing I want you to think about is scalability, and it's often something beginners will overlook. Like, will your site work in year 3, year 5, or even year 10? So choosing a site that's too small might limit your future growth. But of course, on the flip side, if you pick a site that's too big, that can often make the event feel empty, and that kills an atmosphere. What you want is a space that feels busy, even with a small crowd, but has room to grow as your ticket sales increase in future years. What you don't want to do is compromise on your atmosphere when you're not at full capacity. My takeaway here is to pick a site that fits your current audience and future ambitions. Using OnePlan, you could try different event footprints using our area tool to get a feel for what the space looks like as your event grows in future years. The area tool also provides a handy calculation that gives you the total size inside that space. Number 3 on the list is permits and local regulations. Now, it goes without saying that nobody really likes paperwork, but ignoring this in events is a fast track to cancellations and fines. So, the things you need to understand are what permits you need. Now, that's going to vary depending on where you are in the world. You need to understand what the noise, alcohol, or fire safety regulations are. You need to check if there's any local zoning and other land use laws you need to be aware of. You also need to be aware of the maximum capacity and any curfews on time for when you can have sound on at the site. Sadly, do all this boring stuff early. You need to talk to local councils or authorities before you commit. So, my key takeaway here is do the boring stuff early and talk to your local government or authorities before you commit to a particular site. Why don't you try searching for your location and mass gathering license, or your country and event safety regulations? This is going to save you a world of pain further down the line. When you're ready to share, OnePlan allows you to share your site plan with an optional password for security purposes with any local governments or agencies. And this can be a great way to get feedback and not lose track of different versions of your plan, as OnePlan lives in the cloud, so it's always live. The fourth thing that I want to talk about is amenities and infrastructure. And this is where the reality of the site hits the fantasy of the plan. You need to ask yourself, is there water, is there power, or things like sanitation already on site? If not, you'll need to provide it. Can emergency services easily access the site quickly? Are there any access roads, or will you need to build temporary ones? This will be especially key if you're on a greenfield site. You'll need to think about things like trackway for vehicles that stop them sinking into the mud if the ground gets wet. Think about things like public toilets and water tanks, generators, and lighting towers. So a key takeaway here is not to fall in love with the site until you know exactly what you need to bring in to make it workable. You can use OnePlan to map out key items and routes, ensuring everything works together before committing to hiring expensive infrastructure. Start by adding some of the big items to your site, like fencing, gates, staging or tents, and identify where you need to bring things like water and power. The fifth and final part that I want to talk about is vibe, experience, and setting. And this is the most important and the hardest perhaps to define. Think about the atmosphere that you're trying to create inside of your event. Is your site scenic, immersive, and aligned with your brand? Can it be themed or transformed, or do you just want to leave it left raw as you found it? Think about if it will create lasting memories for your audience. So pick a site that contributes to the story you want your festival to tell. The right location can become part of the legend. So I hope that's been useful. Let's recap what we've covered. Your festival site should be accessible. It should scale with your ambitions. You should meet all legal and safety requirements. You should cover and think about all of the infrastructure that you have or need to bring onto site. And finally, create a vibe that your audience will never forget. Get these 5 things right, and you're not just picking a location, you're laying the foundation for a legendary event. If you found this helpful, check out the next video on how to design your first site using real-world mapping tools. And drop a comment below. What kind of festival are you planning? I'll see you in the next video.